Look, I'm not going to pretend I have the solution for everything, but sometimes it's a good idea to teach a man how to fish. I know the majority of my viewers have probably watched a metagame tier list in the last couple of days, and I'm not going to say that they're woefully wrong or you shouldn't listen to these tier lists at all, but sometimes you have to ask the question, so what? Why should I care that Infernoble is a B tier deck, or that Vanadium is an A tier deck, or that Traptrix, well, big surprise, is Rogue again? Also, it's important to recognize that formats change. As the mass of players make a similar decision, certain decks are poised to do better as new strategies are found over the course of a set release. One tier list for every set? Not really. You need one tier list for every week. Getting into the nitty-gritty, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of a weird card game. We don't have colors like other games that distinguish certain kinds of decks. We just have cards that have their own unique identity to them, called archetypes. Your deck is split up into these unique engine cards and these non-engine cards, more commonly known as staples. These are what the format warps around. What are the best engines and what are the best cards to stop them? So normally going into a tournament, a locals, big event, regional, or whatever, you have to imagine what decks are going to be the most played and what non-engine cards are there going to be, and then try to build your deck accordingly in the most optimal manner. But why waste time imagining? Let's look at an actual tournament. Welcome to the EUWC in Utrecht. This just happened a couple months ago. Sure, the format's outdated, but I wanted to talk about the metagame going into this event. So let's say we wanted to build the best possible deck to attack this top cut. What do we want? Well, first let's start off with our engine. What deck do we want to play? Nearly 60% of the decks played in this top cut were Kashtira, Dragon Link, and Runic variants. And I'm gonna be honest, Kashtira as an engine is still probably the simplest and most effective one in this top cut, even though it's targeted by everyone. But we'll talk about some outliers in a moment. Head-to-head, Kashtira decks have the ability to play Dimension Shifter, which is a critical weak point with little counterplay for the rest of the format. Also, Kashtira has access to other tech cards that have gotten to this point. If people are lazy with their deck building and opt for common non-engine like Talents or Dark Ruler No More, they can get heavily punished by a Forbidden Lands, and your game goes up in smoke. So we're playing Kashtira. Most people believe we are on Forbidden Lands, so others will try to counter us. Many deck lists have opted to have ways of accessing a kaiju or any monster that tributes an opponent's card, dodging Forbidden Lance's spell trap immunity. How do we navigate this? Well, behold the second place deck list from this tournament. Christian Thomas's approach to Kashtira. Christian Thomas has a unique take on Kashtira. He's opted to play the maximum of 15 hand traps in his deck list, in a field surrounded by Forbidden Lances, Triple Tactics cards, Book of Moons, and enemy controllers. In order to consistently win the Kashtira matchup, you have to play cards like Enemy Controller and Book of Moon. We were focusing on the top 60%, but how about we focus on the other 70%? By Christian Thomas's logic, he tailored his main deck to be able to contest most of the other decks in the format, being extremely flexible with 15 hand traps. In addition, it's not like these cards are necessarily bad in the format. Sure, against corner case decks, these hand traps will not get the most value, but against the most common threats, they are exceptionally strong. Instead, Christian Thomas would tailor his side deck with 9 cards to beat the mirror match instead in games 2 and 3. You can see that Christian, by simply not playing Forbidden Lance, managed to dodge a lot of the hate for Forbidden Lance. Christian Thomas was a man with a plan. So let's assess what cards performed well overall in the tournament. Nibiru the Primal Being performed exceptionally well. Forbidden Lance was successful, but perhaps not enough players were preparing to play against it, and now that they've got to experience it, it's not more of a known quantity. One of the most overlooked decks in Labyrinth saw extensive top cut success, as 2 of the 3 pilots made it into the top 8, and well, we know what happened to one of them. Other surprises include Rickasun Avalon, which saw 4 players break into the top 32 this event as well. Okay, but so what? I just tossed a bunch of numbers at you. What do we want to do with this? Come on now. Well, it's the next weekend, July 6th, 2023. It's the North American World Championship Qualifier. Hey, it's me, Garrett Phi Shear. What's up, guys? See, actually, this video is all about me. You're on my channel, so I get to do what I want. So let's analyze my deck list based on this information that I gleaned from the EUWC. For this event, I expected less Kashtira players to be on Forbidden Lands, and still expected players to not really switch their strategies last minute. So I expected about the same amount of numbers that we were seeing at the EUWC. But one thing I had noticed is that in North America, Dragon Link had turned out to be an exceptionally popular strategy. So I decided to toss in the most basic curveball in Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck building. I played Nibiru the Primal Being, a definitive risk, but as Kashtira players moved away from playing Forbidden Lands, the likelihood Kashtira would combo into Nibiru was higher, as well as being better at beating rogue decks. Seeing how well Christian Thomas's list performed, I wanted to at least give a counter to the potential rise in hand traps, and to give myself options to deal with them, both going first and second. I opted to invest into a small triple tactics thrust package, including Dark Hole and Feather Duster into the mix in order to deal with them. I still wanted to have a good mirror match game 1, so I played 5 copies total, 3 Book of Moon, and 2 enemy controller, so that on average, I would draw one of these. Look, don't get me wrong, this deck list isn't perfect, but it was an idea, and I was about to run the NAWC. Music, please. Whew, I'm 5-1. Day 2 is just over the horizon. All I need to do is win 2 more games. Okay, I'm playing against Elijah Green. It's cool. I'm not nervous at all. It's not every day you get to play against a YCS champion, and guy has more tops than I have events attended. However, constant activations of Arise Heart, Birth, banishing from graveyard, attaching, detaching, XYZ materials, it's like playing through maple syrup, and I can't get to my battle phase in an overwhelmingly winning position. I've run out of time. And I wasn't mad after it. I myself took too much time thinking over my plays. Can't keep yourself down. I still can win 2 more games. Well, round 8, I'm up against Purely. The game was back and forth, fun. I played well, but not perfectly, and I lost. That's the margins of a big event, folks. And with that, I was out. I made a whole other video talking about my personal takeaways from the tournament, but overall, I don't think the issue was with my deck list at all. Measuring up my success, I think if I went further into the tournament and didn't run into the best rogue strategy of the tournament in Purely, maybe I could have went a bit farther. Looking at the top cut representation, I think it could have performed alright. Most Kashtira decks opted out of playing Forbidden Lance, so my emphasis on main deck board breakers could have seen success. However, the one matchup I wasn't prepared for, and others that made the switch to a completely unrepresented deck at the EUWC, prospered against players like me. One last segment. When looking at a deck's performance out of YCS, it's good to assess what actually caused this deck to top. At 3v3 YCS Sao Paulo, Unchained was rampant in top cut. 7 of the 12 decks in the top 4 were Unchained, all piloted by some of the best duelists in the United States. What gave it the edge? Is it tier 0? Well, not exactly, obviously. Unchained is a deck that doesn't lose to anything in particular, and the one card it does struggle against, Nibiru the Primal Being, duelists were too afraid to put into their main deck frequently because of the prevalence of Kashtira and Purely. Alongside that, everyone in their extended family was playing Droll Lockbird in their deck, a card Unchained doesn't care about. Don't get me wrong, Unchained is a good deck with a very high skill ceiling. But for this particular event, it exploited a gap in the format and ran over the rest of the competition. And the only thing that could stop it was a mirror match, to which I highly recommend you guys watch Jesse Cotton versus Pakawat's top 4 mirror match. It really was an excellent game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So we'll have to wait until YCS Vancouver and the following few weeks to see if Unchained really is this dominant deck in a format. But until then, we'll have to wait until next week. So on that note, folks, peace.